Hello. Hi. We'll be starting super sharp at 2 o'clock as per my clock. So I request all of you to take your seats. Thank you. Okay, wonderful. So good to see all of you here. This is amazing. Thank you very much for making time. My name is Kritika. I'm from Asia School of Business. I lead the corporate engagement team for ASB. Um, it's really interesting that all of you made this as a priority and turned out. Okay, so here's a warm welcome to the third leadership. Oh, okay, let's give a little bit time for everyone to settle down. I think still people are moving. So, okay, let's restart this again. My name is Kritika. I'm usually called as Crew. It's easier to remember that way. I lead corporate engagement and partnerships for the school. So if you're remotely interested or curious about what ASB does, you should speak to us. We have my team members here, Prema and Jaime, and many other colleagues who can explain what ASB does. And with that, I warmly welcome all of you to the third Leadership Summit series, The Future of People at Work. We do have a special guest today, which is founder of BFM, Malik Ali, right here with us. Excuse me. And what we're going to do is, first of all, before I get started, I shall read out a few notes, which is basically right here. We'd like to thank Epsom College and ECM Libra Foundation for sponsoring the Leadership Summit series. Before we do that, we have to actually talk about the fire alarm and all those announcements regarding that. So basically, if you hear the fire alarm, please don't panic. Keep an eye out for fire marshals for instructions. Look out for the nearest exit and head to the nearest assembly point, which is located next to our ASB driveway. And then kindly go down to the staircase in an orderly manner and do not use the lift during an emergency. Yeah. And for all interactions, please utilize the mic in front of you and push the mic button, which will turn green if you want to speak. So to begin our summit, I take great pleasure in introducing our CEO, President, and Dean, Dr. Sanjay Sarma, to welcome all of us.
If you can change to my presentation. I'm going to launch straight into a presentation, which is, there you have it. We are in a very special moment right now. And I want to tell you a little bit about my concerns as an AI researcher about all the things that are happening in the world when it comes to artificial intelligence, work, skills, and the skills gap that entire countries are confronting, sometimes without realizing it. And it leads to a fundamental question related to learning, education, and upping human intelligence at a time when machine intelligence is on the rise. So, this first slide, I had a title which I changed just to be a little bit less hubristic. I said, permit me to blow your minds. Right? That's a little hubristic. And so instead, I'm going to do the following. I am going to go to a website. This website is a program called Suno. How many of you have used Suno? Some of you? All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to compose a song. All right? And the song, so I can get my mouse to it. You can see it, is going to be in Bahasa Melayu. On what should we say? AI, and the future of work. Oh, I'm not typing in there, I'm sorry. Go there again. Ah, there it is, yeah, I am typing. Shall we set it to C minor? C minor? And shall we make it a little haunting? Why not? Okay, create. Let's see if that works. It's going to create 2 songs, and I'll play them for you, and we'll share it with you at the end of this. All right? Anyway, while it's doing that, oh, there you are. That was quick. It took me about 3 minutes earlier in the evening, but now the East Coast is sleeping, so the servers are free. And then the refrain starts. I'm going to go back to my slides, stick to my knitting. I'm a professor. But how was it? Yeah? How was the language? And it was generated entirely by the text I typed. Right? This should be a sign of something. Now, I'm now going to, by the way, there are more seats on that side if people are looking to sit. I'm going to show you a second thing. Okay? You've probably seen this.
That's why.
Sorry. Let me take that down. There you go. There you go.
That's why.
Oh.
It's it's a little embarrassing. You know, it reminds me. I was once in Russia. I ran into Gorbachev. He said, "You know, Mr. Movie Star, are you nervous?" I said, "No, Mr. Gorbachev, I'm not nervous. I don't." He goes, "Well, remember how much a polar bear weighs." I said, "Polar bear?" He said, "Enough to break the ice." It's the last time I've ever seen Mikhail Gorbachev.
What's up, TikTok? You guys cool if I play some sports? I love it.
So I think you know enough
That's why.
to realize that was entirely a fake video. Down to the mannerisms, the fact that he falls down, right? The fact that he speaks in a fake Russian accent. It's quite extraordinary. So this is the era we've quietly marched into and we're waking up to. Except most of us are not there yet. What did William Gibson say? The future is here, it's just unevenly distributed. But when it shows up, the differences in the distributions have visceral impacts on societies and economies. There's no surprise that Hollywood went on strike last year. You can see why. Music, video. I didn't even show you Sora, which is the video thing, which I'm sure many of you have seen. We're at a very special time. Now, you should know that this AI took 82 years to become an overnight success. AI was not invented yesterday. The first AI began in the 1940s. Actually, they moved to MIT from the University of Chicago. And it was based in hubris. They failed AI went through something called an AI winter through the 80s and 90s. When I was a grad student, I used to work in AI. I was ashamed of telling people that I worked in AI because it was a stamp of failure. And then something happened in 2010, 2011, 2012, when GPUs kicked in, and the second wave of AI took off. This wave has not ended. We're still in the middle of it. So face recognition, Shazam, everything that you see in AI, actually, most AI you see today is still second wave. And then the third wave began simultaneously in 2017, also using GPUs. And that's large language models. And what you saw with Suno is a large language model. By the way, Suno is Hindi for song. That's where the name comes from. And what enabled it all was GPUs, large data sets. Thank all those kids who played video games and drove you nuts. And then large language models are the game changer. And that's what we confront today. This is to change work very significantly. Now, these terms, cyborg and a centaur, these are not words I made up. They were actually made up by a Harvard professor. And the basic idea here is there will be people who ride the AI horse, and he calls them centaurs. And then there are people who become sort of merged with AI in everything you do, right? And those are the cyborgs. For example, I have a car with self-driving. I'm a cyborg because that whole system is together. But when I use AI to generate music, I'm a centaur. It doesn't matter. The point is, work is going to change. And there's been a lot written, including by my own colleagues, like Daron Acemoglu, whom I sent an angry email to a couple of days ago because I disagree with him, saying, it's not going to make such a big difference. Unfortunately, that's not true. So this is from the Financial Times, this article. It shows how the number of freelance jobs plummeted once ChatGPT came out, and how white-collar incomes also plummeted once ChatGPT came out. Right? It's not going to be easy because adopting and adapting to AI as a company is difficult. There's risk. There's integration issues. There's training. There's education. But the writing is on the wall. It's here. It's here for you to see. Now, here's another article, also actually in the Financial Times. And this is the Harvard paper by Delac et al., Ethan Mollick from UPenn, from Wharton, Karim Lakhani from Harvard. All these guys wrote this paper called The Jagged Frontier. It's jagged because where AI will succeed is jagged. In some places, it's going to be really good, and some places, it's going to suck. But people who understand where the jagged peaks are going to win. So they call it the jagged frontier. And what they show is, if you take people who are less experienced, AI can be a superpower. If you take experts, AI is okay. It doesn't make such a big difference. That's what it says. And you can see, because AI is a great equalizer. So in some sense, this is good news. This is good news. In other ways, it's bad news, right? And the bottom half of the market, if they use AI, they can become great. Right? The other thing is, and this is basically the same chart sort of shown twice, but what it also shows is that the benefit here, it also exists. But in my view, and these studies can't really capture it completely, is a great a great exponent of something using AI can do a much wider range of activities, right? Become like a fighter pilot. You can shoot missiles, you can drop bombs, a terrible analogy today. But the point is that AI is going to change us all. And the gap is in education. Knowledge. This is going to be the difference. And McKinsey has a study out. This came out actually last year in 2023. Some of you may have seen it. It's an excellent study. It talks about how AI can help in 2 or 3 ways. One way to think about AI is it's going to create new business cases, new use models. Another way is it's going to make you more productive. A third way to look at AI, which is a little bit more negative, is it's going to be a way to cut costs. Right? Those are 3 very different things. For example, with AI, you can sell this music service. By the way, I paid for Suno. I just shelled out $10 today, so I could show you this demo, right? It's a new business model. It can increase your productivity. To write a document, make my letter a little bit more polite. And instead of me typing it, AI does it for me. It may be more productive. It could take jobs away, and that's huge too, right? So what McKinsey is talking about is the sheer scale of AI, which is how many trillions of dollars AI is going to add to the economy. And that is the world we're in right now. And the difference comes down to talent, productivity, enabled by generative AI, including in use cases, and really comes down to learning. If you don't know it, you're roadkill. If you know it, you're in the driver's seat. And that's really what's going to happen, right? This will change companies rapidly. How many of you have used AI outside of ChatGPT? Do you know? Okay, give me an example. Anyone? Penny? Penny's a student, so I can do that. Gemini, yeah? But within a product, like a travel agency. Have you used AI? A bank? How many of you have been to Expedia recently? If you go to Expedia on the app, you can say something as unstructured as, find me something fun to do in Penang this weekend. And it'll figure it all out. Earlier, if you typed that, it would crash, right? Hotel Penang, that's all you could do, right? You can even say, find me something romantic to do in Penang this weekend. It'll parse it and do stuff with it. So one of the barriers that AI has broken is that we used to live in two different worlds. The world of structured data, like Excel spreadsheets, which Excel could absorb, and unstructured data, which is everything else on your computer. Those two worlds have merged. And that is why this is so game-changing. Computers only worked on structured data. Unstructured data was the domain of human employees. Those two worlds have merged. Because you can take your Zoom notes, which is unstructured, your transcript, and say, give me a summary. And it'll do it. That's a job, that's a task that's been automated. It's not a whole job gone, because a job is actually a bundle of tasks. But it is a task in a job that is gone. And so when you look at the org chart of a company, you can fundamentally rethink what people do. As the Harvard Business Review, there's a very nice article here by Ghosh, Wilson, and Castagnino. Ghosh is actually the CTO of Accenture, someone I know quite well. And they talk about how companies will have to go through their org charts and re-engineer themselves because tasks will be automated pretty significantly. So this is the world that crept up on us while we slept. And we wake up to it and go, oh my God, is my company there? Am I there? Right? And the difference is going to be talent, the ability to get into it, the ability to absorb it. I want to put up some statistics here. This came out from a company called Klarna. This was published in May, I think, or February this year. So I'll let you read the statistics for a second. So Klarna has replaced the equivalent of 700 full-time agents. They're an e-commerce company. 700. If I'm the Philippines right now, what is, if you look at Philippines GNP, call centers, outsourcing is a huge component of my GDP, actually. I'm looking at this going, oh my God, what's my future, right? 700 agents, 2.3 million conversations, 25% drop in repeat inquiries, which means that the AI was doing a very good job compared to agents. I read a study somewhere where they did a blind comparison between prescriptions given by AI and prescriptions given by doctors. I kid you not. And conversations, chats, right? Where they had an AI behind it and a doctor behind it. And I couldn't find the source, others have put it up. I can tell you anecdotally. It found the AI conversations both more accurate medically, but also more empathic. That's the part that shocked me, right? So, and by the way, this is 35 languages, which is no surprise. I just composed a song in Bahasa Melayu, right? So, and it's going to change industries. So these are two articles. One is about video production, right? The Hollywood strike, by the way, wasn't about video. It was simply about screenwriters. You can imagine every little industry sector questioning its existence, right? Who owns that video of Tom Cruise? Does Tom Cruise have any say on it? He doesn't, actually. I was talking to a voice actor the other day, and he said, when I do voice acting, I give my voice and I leave, and then if they want to do something else, they need to call me again. Now they don't have to call me. So where's Swaroop? Swaroop created a fake version of my voice. I'm not sure what for. He did, right? By the way, in an AI hackathon yesterday, Swaroop and co, in a few hours, Swaroop and Timur and Professor Assad, they showed this demo of a workflow for talent acquisition, which was, I thought, oh my God, another job gone. That's him, right? So this is where we are. Who owns what? Who owns you? What are you, if not your voice and your face, both of which are now ripped off and owned by someone else? It's very existential questions as well about intellectual property. We had an AI summit last year. It was also funded by ECM, Libra, and Epsom. And actually, Swaroop presented there. I thought, I don't know how much this progress is going to continue. I had no idea what was coming, really, right? We have an architect here, and I was talking to the company and said, we do a lot of our presentations, the building designs. First step, AI. I have a colleague, Faiz Ahmed at MIT. He is doing not generative text, not generative music, generative engineering. Design an aerofoil for me, which is the cross-section of an aircraft wing with this drag and this lift. It's unbelievable what's happening. So I thought, I was like, am I hyping it last year? I wasn't, right? Because what's happened is creative people have got their teeth into it. And now other things are happening. So it's a very important time. And as I've said, the catch is talent. Machine learning has outpaced human learning. And this is a moment of existential questioning for us. Who are we? What are we? Where are we? Is it Skynet? The Borg, right? And the thing about talent is, first of all, you have to find it. If you look at the history of talent and human development, if you look at the history of farming, we went from hunter-gatherers to farmers. Talent has gone the other way. Companies used to farm talent. You hired people young. You sort of retrained them. You put them through you circulated them through the company. You mentored them, and that was your talent. The CEO of P&G he's been at P&G all his life. That's how these companies grew. Somewhere along the way, we decided, it's too much of an expense. And we became hunter-gatherers with talent. You want AI? I'll go find some AI experts for you, right? Korn Ferry will help me find some experts. That doesn't work anymore, unfortunately, because you can't find them. And right now, one of my students graduated from MIT with his PhD. His starting salary was $500,000 US, right? You got to develop it. And a lot of it isn't AI coding talent. It's AI expertise in the business setting. It's a way of thinking. It's a mindset. So you got to find it. It's hard. You got to retain it. That's even harder. But perhaps the most important and robust thing you can do is to build it internally. And unfortunately, we're going to have to become farmers again. But I'm not sure if companies have the courage and the dedication to redo this. I think this is the challenge we face. As you probably know, Malaysia on Monday published its Future Skills Framework. We were actually part of that. Very excited to see it. But a framework is just a start. A framework is an aspiration. A framework does not a workforce make. That's going to take work, right? And that's what this event is about. And remember, it's not just AI. It's green finance. It's sustainability technology. How many of you have heard of direct air carbon capture, DAC? You know what that is? It's an effort to suck CO2 out of the air. Remember the first Total Recall movie? Arnold Schwarzenegger? Was it Arnold? Yeah? And they go to Mars, right? Remember those things that they're generating oxygen in that last scene? Not so far from the truth for us. We may have to have giant towers that pull CO2 out of the air. It's called direct air carbon capture. And yet it may well be our future. How many people have even heard of it? Right? So it's not just AI. It's thing after thing after thing. Biotech. The commencement speaker at MIT this year was Noubar Afeyan, the founder of Moderna, MIT company. Moderna gets its name from, anyone know? A biotech concept that you all know called mRNA, messenger RNA. They invented it, they developed it, they were looking for the use case. COVID came along, and they had a vaccine in 42 days. Right? We're going to learn about all that. We just went through a pandemic. So learning is in our future. And human capital development will be existential in the world, but also in Malaysia. We have a session on that later on. Crew and I will be running that session on talent. Malaysia has its own, every country has its own unique problems. You know, there's a great quote from Anna Karenina in which they say that all happy families are happy in the same way, but every unhappy family is unhappy in a different way. So every country has a labor problem in its own unique way. And Malaysia has its own problem. It has to do with the gig economy, for example, aging workforce. We'll talk about it. So the future, we believe, is continuous education. And so we're actually introducing something you've probably seen the videos as well, which is we're going to take, we've already done it, take our courses, our degrees, and make them modular. You can take a single course if you want, get a certificate for it. By the way, that certificate will be guaranteed on a blockchain. You know, we got in on the blockchain thing as well. We know how to be sexy. And no, I'm just kidding. I started that at MIT 10 years ago. MIT, Harvard, a bunch of schools use it. I'm going to sign up. So you get the certificate, put it on your LinkedIn page. There's a link. And click on it. It'll say you got it. It's not, no one has to call anyone. They're stackable. What that means is you can take 3 courses and get a credential for it. And they're modular, transferable. And what that means is you can move them into a degree and get credit for it. And we call that agile continuous education. You'll hear more about it. So look, I don't want to stand in the way of anymore of your talk and a presentation that Malik Ali will make. Malik Ali, amongst other things, is also the founder of BFM, the Breakfast Grill. I've been grilled. So it'll be great to see Malik speak, hear him speak. Thank you. And my joke is, you know, reset your watches because we just arrived in the future. You know, when you land in a new airport, they tell you the time. So make sure you're in on July 24th, 2024. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sanjay, thank you so much. That was exhilarating as much as it's frightening.
Good.
So I think you created the impact that we wanted. Again, thanks a lot. I didn't do justice by introducing Sanjay. You can read up on his profile. He's not foreign to many of us, but in case you're new to Asia School of Business, yes, it would be worthwhile paying attention to all the wonderful work that he has done. The man behind many technologies like RFID, AI, and so on and so forth. But in the interest of time, so I had to cut out what I can introduce. So next up, we have Mr. Malik Ali, and he's the founder of BFM, as we mentioned. Malik is the visionary founder, and he's actually a pioneering fintech entrepreneur as well, with a passion for discourse and a commitment to elevating the nation's business landscape. Malik established BFM in 2008 to fill a critical gap in Malaysian media. Under his leadership, BFM has actually grown into a respected platform renowned for its in-depth interviews, comprehensive market analysis, and thought-provoking programs. I didn't realize how challenging it is to read from a phone. Excuse me, anyways. In addition to the work with BFM, Malik has also made significant strides in fintech. As a forward-thinking entrepreneur, he has spearheaded innovative projects that leverage technology to transform financial services in Malaysia. His fintech ventures have focused on accessibility, efficiency, and transparency in financial transactions, thereby contributing to the modernization of the nation's financial ecosystem. That's awesome. And Malik's dual impact in media and fintech points to his leadership and dedication to fostering growth and innovation in Malaysia. He'll be speaking on, is Malaysia ready for the AI-powered workplace? So earlier we actually listened to Sanjay very much speaking about AI and all the exciting things, the potential that it bears, right? All the exciting things it can bring to us. But how ready are we as a nation? That's exactly what Malik is going to speak about. I welcome you.
Thank you. Thanks. First, disclaimer: I'm no expert. I'm just I'm still swimming in this as you guys are. But I've seen some early things. I've seen some. You have students who dabble in this. I have employees who go into this as well. We as a radio station is quite interesting as well because we have it's even easier. We can replicate voices now very, very easily. And so you might have a radio station, you don't know whether there's a real person behind that voice or not. But anyway, just to kind of so I come here with humility. In a sense, I'm also here to learn. I'm here also to get ideas and thoughts. And I think Sanjay's presentation also gave me really food for thought. So I think let's take this as kind of like, hey, we know, Sanjay might be an expert, I'm not, but we're trying to learn together. I think that's the most important thing. How will jobs change? This is my, so the first time I wanted to do this, I said, let's try it out. Let's try and ask. I just went to Gemini and just said, hey, well, I'm doing a presentation to a group of HR professionals on, sort of how AI will impact the workplace. And these are the kind of like, I said, so what should I say? So you just give me a whole spiel of stuff. So this actually, to a large extent, 80% of it is AI generated. It's just that you have someone here, sort of kind of like maybe lending it a bit credibility, going, oh yeah, I'll choose the ones which I think are relevant because that's in my experience. This are not so relevant. But here, these are the things, right? Definitely automation of routine tasks. That's for sure. The biggest example for me is for this is like in radiology when you're looking at X-rays. Those people who look at X-rays and looking for those little those little markers, very, very, very hard. Have you seen an X-ray before trying to find something from it? It's really hard. It requires a really expert trained eye, and even then you miss it. So those kind of jobs actually now has become, you have AI to be able to recognize which are the kind of like flag those ones that are suspect, right? That immensely helps. Immensely helps. I once lost my cat, and I'm sitting and I'm trying to look at the CCTV of my condominium, right? Trying to figure out where the cat went, right? I had to sit through hours of video looking for that cat, right? And I'm like, wow, I'm sitting down here in a very hot, stuffy room in the CCTV room, looking for this cat, scrolling. If I had AI, no longer. You can see, I can probably say, show me cat, right? And then the cat, it'll just fast forward to the areas where the cat is, right? So, in that sense, it's this sort of repetitive task it helps. Let's not talk about AI-enhanced creativity. I think Sanjay just proved to me that actually it's AI-generated. It's AI creativity, right? So I'm like, wow, I mean, that blew me away. And I learned that, that it has gone so far in the music field. I didn't realize how far it has went. I learned that today. Video, not yet, I think, and certainly in PowerPoint, not yet. I tried. Maybe I don't have Microsoft Copilot. I tried to plug in the things. Okay, generate me a nice PowerPoint presentation, or not PowerPoint, it's Google Slide presentation. We're entrepreneurs, so we can't pay the fees.
Try tome.ai.
Sorry, what?
Tome.ai, Tome.ai.
Oh, Tome.ai, thank you. I tried Slide.io or something, it didn't work. Tome.ai, great. And yeah, I mean, that's amazing. And I worry for our talent, right? I worry for our musical talent and things like that. Is there something special about them that can create a better song, a better riff than that? Hard, right? Not easy. And then, of course, this element of I think, again, human AI collaboration, the centaurs and the cyborgs. I think that's how to harness it, and how to a certain extent we plug into it. So cyborg worries me. Centaur, I'm a bit happy about. I'm not sure about you guys. But at this point, at this juncture, I just wanted to ask you guys, just a show of hands. Fear or optimism? Fear. Okay? We could have nuclear war soon, right? Optimism. Okay. And some put up your hands twice, and I think that's exactly it. It's both fear and optimism. And I can see it in my team when I turned up one day and said, hey, we got this AI voice that can read our news, right? And it was more fear, actually. So, will humans lose jobs to AI? And I think this is the optimistic view. I don't think it's the only view. At this moment, humans will lose jobs to other humans who know how to use AI, right? That's the optimistic view. There is a pessimistic view, which is and I think that's clearly shown up that some jobs, unequivocally, will be taken over by AI completely. So, the good news is that there's still some jobs where if we know how to master it, we'll still be useful. But there are some which will go away, and the ability is to identify which is which and advise your children accordingly. Okay? So now I hear fear. So that's the first phase, and I think things. And new skills are required, I guess. Definitely adaptability, continuous learning. I think Sanjay just showed that just now about sort of modular, stackable things. But other elements also, it's also creativity and problem solving. It's also knowing what is the question that you're trying to answer. Sometimes this is the toughest things about work and skills and so on, and about AI. It's really, I asked one of my employees this morning to research on something. I wanted to research, okay, someone wanted to do a video of me and kind of like circulate to their online participants, and then just for things. So I said, okay, can you just go check with let's have something legal on this, a nice letter that says, hey, whatever you do, please don't edit it, and just kind of like keep it within this group. And what came back from her was an NDA, which didn't really fit, right? So in a way, there is an element of sort of being able to problem solve. You need to know what the problem is in the first place, right? And I think this is where the experience comes in and so on, right? So that's 2. 3, critical thinking and judgment. Fantastic case. There's a lawyer somewhere in the US who turned up to the judge and cited a case that never existed, right? So in a way, to be able to, you need some expertise at least to be able to recognize something which is overtly wrong, that AI. I'm not sure about you. When I was in school grade 10, I think, maybe earlier, 7, 8. The first time we were introduced at school to use a calculator. Those things, calculators, I remember we were given the calculator. We were all so excited, right? We were like, 13 years old, 14 years old, whatever it is. and trying to punch our first calculator, raring to go to his calculator. We had to do math in tables and things like that. Now we can use calculators. And then, I think it was Mr. Holden, I think, he said, hang on a second, before you start, when you use a calculator, these are the principles that you need to do. Just do this first. Before you type anything, create a try to solve the problem mentally first, right? Try to solve mentally first, and then use a calculator so that is it roughly there, right? The calculator will be more accurate, but your mental math will tell you whether you're close, whether the answer is right in case you punch something wrong. And to me, right now, that's how I think that critical thinking comes in, that we need to have a little bit, in this legal case, that legal situation, you need to be able to say, hey, is there such a, was in my law school days, is there such a precedent? And if there's this precedent, are there another way for me verifying it, checking it, triangulating? These are things about critical thinking, triangulating your answers, figuring out other ways to get there, right? So that's, I think, the element of critical thinking and judgment. Sorry. Social and emotional intelligence. The nice thing about AI, once you start to automate the continuous repetitive tasks, right? We can then focus on the social side of things, the emotional side of things. Can you imagine, I think in America, they have something called, GPs, general practitioners for doctors, right? They have a shortage of GPs in rural areas in the US. So they started a program for NPs, nurse practitioners, right? Nurse practitioners who also have that sort of, maybe more than doctors, GPs, that sort of social intelligence of being able to work with patients and so on. Imagine if that nurse in that hospital, you're waiting for the consultant. I mean, everyone been on a hospital bed, you know that you wait for the doctors to come around every morning and things like that, and they charge you thousands of dollars for it. But imagine, but actually the nurse knows more about what your condition is because she sees you for the last 6 hours, and she knows. But maybe her knowledge is not as extensive as the doctor. But if she had access to something, if she had access to a co-pilot to a certain extent, to tell her, okay, you know what, these symptoms of this is this, you don't need to call a doctor, these are the things that you can do, right? And then you reserve only the most severe types of situations for the doctors. Imagine that kind of situation. That social side will become a premium. The emotional intelligence, the emotional interaction with you. How many times do you say, you go to a hospital, the doctor was, no bedside manners and things like that, and nurses were rude, right? If that were the case. You would have a much better care, you feel that you would have much better care if you had nurses who came across as really well. And that will become a premium. And I think that's a good thing. I think our health workers and similar people in that situation will command a premium. And then the fifth one, and this is where AI generated the first four, I added the fifth one. I think curiosity is important. The reason why I know about these things is because I have employees, and I myself, to a certain extent, willing to listen to their ideas on how jobs will change, how their jobs will change. And we need to continue to have that curiosity somehow. And I think, and this is where I come back to now Malaysia, because, so these are the things that we can help. How we can help employees, upskill them, foster the collaboration, redesign jobs, encourage lifelong learning, communicate the impact of AI. The last point is actually important, communication, because as I said just now, what was the first reaction when I said, hey, I have a recording of Natalie's voice. I asked Natalie permission, of course. I asked her permission, and I said, Natalie, can I use your voice as an experiment? And Natalie said yes. Poor thing, she was one of the most junior people at BFM, because I know the senior ones will say, no, no way, and I'll get a strike on my hands. But I didn't communicate that impact to the rest of the news team. Right? I just kind of suddenly they heard amongst the whispers, oh, Malik is creative. He goes to 11 and creates this sort of, he took a 2-hour sample of Natalie's voice reading the news, and now he has Natalie's voice reading the news. And the resistance I'm feeling right now is amazing. It's like, oh, condemn, you cannot do this. We won't do it. Ui is here, Ui is a thing. They're all like, I'm sure, you're sitting on the other side of the room, you're hearing all these things, right? Anyway, so you need to communicate up front what you're doing with it. Even if you're experimenting in the skunk works, you need to tell people who think might be impacted what you're doing with it. Now, Malaysia. New skills required. Malaysia boleh. Okay. All right. Maybe here, and this is an epiphany, slight epiphany that I had sitting down there. Do you know this guy called Donald Rumsfeld? Defense Secretary of the US during George Bush's time, right? So he had this word about, I remember this quote, it was so confusing. It's something about, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what you don't know, no, that kind of thing. So it's that kind of thing. But I don't know the full quote. I was trying to look it up, but I couldn't get it. But anyway, but I think our job, our education system, is to get people from you don't know what you don't know, right? You know what that means? It means you don't even come across it. You don't know what you don't know. So it's like you can't even address the problem. You can't even ask the right questions because you don't know what you don't know, right? We need to get people from that phase to you know what you don't know. And that's good enough to me because AI will help you know what you don't know. But we need to get folks from you don't know what you don't know to you know what you don't know. Right? So that to me is, in essence, the role of education now, to get us to the point where we know there are things out there we don't know, but we know we don't know them, so that we can deal. We can find solutions, we can ask for help, we can query AI to figure that out. Do I sound like Donald Rumsfeld? I hope not. If I do, maybe you don't know what you don't know. Just kidding. There we are. So in this area, adaptability and continuous learning, right? Is our education system geared up for adaptability and continuous learning? Hands up. I'll just do a vote. Let's just do a vote. You guys are in the right field. Just do a vote. Is the Malaysian education system ready for adaptability and continuous learning? Who says no? Okay, who says yes? Okay. Johan, I see your hands up. Because, can I hear your few words on that voice? I mean, not to put you on the spot. This is like HBS cold case.
Well, I mean, you see Malaysians all over the world achieving lots of different things in different geographies, right? So I would say that speaks to our adaptability as a nation.
You have a point there. So Johan is saying that we see Malaysians all over the world sort of adapting and so on in this space. But I would like to counter that. It's not necessarily because of our education system, necessarily. I think it is our social system, right? Our social system. Look at us, right? We're all, we're from different races, going to different types of schools, meeting different kind of people, passive aggressive, verbose, this, that, the other, everything, And, I think that's our adaptability. That's our superpower, actually. It's our adaptability of different cultures. And I think I would argue our education system doesn't really actually kind of like, in a way, sort of, thing, but I think our social system promotes that, at least up to now, right? I worry about the future, but at least up to now, right? Creativity and problem solving. Okay, who would say we are ready in this area? Sorry, who would say we're not ready in this area yet? Our education system doesn't provide creative and problem solving. Who would say no? Okay, who says yes? Okay, fairly, not too bad. I would also argue that I'm not sure about the schools. I need to go back to school again, right? But certainly, I think in the way that we have to navigate our education system, we have to navigate our different pathways to university, our different pathways to life. The social system, again, our circumstances allow us a lot of creativity and problem solving, right? In Singapore, the government does a lot of, very functional, very efficient, does everything very well. But, right? But then, so your life through school and everything is very structured, very structured. You do this, IB, or if not, you go Polytechnic, you're done, right? Malaysia, like, hey, you do STPM, and then you do I do SPM? Do I do foundation course? Do I do this? I think, in this way, that problem solving is very much just because our government is not very, very good at it. Good. So we problem solve, you see. So I think, we're high in this respect, but for the wrong, again, not the education system. I'm sorry, it doesn't come from there. Critical thinking and judgment. I think, does our education system do that? And social emotional intelligence. I think emotional intelligence. I think that's also our superpower. I think, because being able to understand where people are coming from. I've noticed this. You bring Malaysians anywhere. When we're overseas, we are so like people might say the craziest things and all that. We'd be like chilled, like, okay, I've heard words before back home. That's okay, I'm like, and then you're able to deal with folks, right? Yeah, and curiosity. I think, So, interestingly, I guess what I'm trying to say is Malaysians are ready, but Malaysians are ready not because of education systems. Malaysians are ready because of our social system at this moment in time. And I think that gives us that gives an advantage to a certain extent, but I think we're not taking advantage of it if we don't infuse it, if we don't actually bring it within our education system. So I think certainly my priority, and please, any one of you knows the Minister of Education, please let her know that I'm trying to get an appointment with her. A number of us are trying to get appointments with her because we cannot get access to her. To basically just to say, hey, these are the issues, and we have a plan. John. Sure.
All these things that we're talking about, how likely is it that an education system can actually teach you these things? And can you give some examples of where it's been successfully done before?
I can't give any examples in this AI sphere, but what I'm trying to say is that, again, getting people from, the humility to understand that you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think that's what the education system needs to do. It needs basic literacy skills, reading skills, financial literacy skills. Actually, I'm okay with what's that test that I'm having a senior moment. Where you have that worldwide test that we always kind of we keep going
Mensa?
down. Sorry again? PISA, correct.
PISA.
See, my senior moment. I need AI to cover my senior moment. PISA test, right? I think they're pretty comprehensive. I think that's where those kinds of basic literacy skills, reading, understanding, analytical, these are things you don't need. You're right. The rest, depth, subject knowledge matter, that can come later, no problem. But we need to get to the point where, I can converse, I can prompt, I can talk, I can speak, I can communicate, and now I need to learn, or I need to know where to learn or where to find things. That's the part where I think you need to get to the point where you know what you don't know. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Malik. I was just thinking, curiosity could kill the cat, but if we are not curious, we are going to get killed. So with that, let me put on my glasses again. And with that, I'm sure you're curious about the next session. It's going to be by our own faculty. So he's going to be actually speaking on how to train your employees, cultivate acceptance of machines by understanding employees' mindsets. And Dr. Alex Eng, he's an associate professor of organizational behavior at ASB. Prof. Alex holds a PhD in management from National University of Singapore, and his work lies at the intersection of artificial intelligence and human psychology. Prof. Alex also studies how human beings respond to intelligent machines as they replace humans in various spheres of work and daily routine. It's going to be interesting. I'm sure you would have seen the undercurrents of AI and machines throughout this summit, right? It's actually supposed to be on future of work. So it's quite clear that future of work is heading towards that. All right, with that, I give it up to Dr. Alex. Yes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Alex. So as she said, I am a professor here. I study organizational behavior, and my research mostly has to do with how we perceive machines and how we react to them. Okay, great. So my talk today is on cultivating an acceptance of machines by understanding your employees' mindsets, right? But what exactly do I mean when I say acceptance? Right, so acceptance can come in many ways, right? Let's say if you want to talk about accepting machines from your employees, and you have people who work in business intelligence, right? Getting them to trust the recommendations made by AI or the forecast made by AI is a form of acceptance. Similarly, if you have HR algorithm tools and you want them to make hiring decisions, firing decisions, then whether people perceive these algorithms as fair and trust them is also can also be considered acceptance. If, let's say, you have a healthcare company and you would like to roll out some companion robots, then reduce loneliness among, say, the elderly who use these robots for companionship would indicate that they have indeed accepted these robots as part of their lives. Right? So acceptance will mean different things for each of your businesses. The important thing here is predicting how employees and customers will react to your AI strategy. So that's what we're going to do today. All right? I'm going to help you make better predictions about how people are going to react to your AI strategy. And we're going to do this in 3 ways. First, we're going to talk about differences. Right? So what are the key differences between how we perceive intelligent machines or AI-imbued machines with technology of the past? Second, we're going to talk about reactions. How do we react differently to machines compared to previous technologies? And how we treat machines as though they are real social entities. And finally, I'm going to give you a framework which will help you make these decisions for your own business. Right? So let's start by talking about differences. Obviously, there are a lot of technological differences between AI and past technology, but we're going to talk about how they are perceived differently, right? Perceptions of AI or perceptions of intelligent machines. We're going to go with a very simple example. Take a vacuum cleaner. Right? Imagine you had a vacuum cleaner that broke down. What is your reaction? Your reaction is most likely going to be frustration. You're going to be frustrated that you now have to clean the house on your own. But the frustration is seldom directed at the machine. You're mostly frustrated because your goals have been thwarted. Right, now take an intelligent machine, an intelligent vacuum cleaner. Whenever you come home, it greets you. Hi, welcome home. I've cleaned the house, but my dustbin is a little bit full. Can you please clean me so that I can continue doing my job? Now imagine this cute vacuum cleaner has a breakdown. What is your reaction going to be? Perhaps we don't just feel frustrated, we might feel empathy. We might feel, oh, this thing, Tom has been working so hard, he needs a little break. Or if Tom has broken down one too many times, we might go, Tom is getting a bit lazy these days. It's time to get a new one, right? So why is there this difference between how we treat intelligent machines versus technology of the past? So one reason for this is minds, right? We perceive previous technology as mindless tools that we use to fulfill some goal. But we've perceived intelligent machines as minded, as having a mind of their own. Yeah, but don't just take this from me, right? Here at ASB, we base things on research. So we're going to talk about some researchers who have tried very hard to establish this finding, that machines have minds of their own. Let's take some behavioral evidence, right? What researchers have done is they take this robot here, and they have 2 versions of it. The first version, they give a little smiley face. They give it a name, a human name, and they give it an accent, right, an American accent. And in another version of this robot, they don't have this face on that screen. They use a robotic name, like Robot123, and they give it a robotic voice. And then they have this robot give negative feedback to participants. And interestingly, what happens is that people perceive the robot with the face and the voice as being more intentional when giving negative feedback. And as a result, more abusive when they give these feedback. To take things one step further, what happened when participants left the room is that they powered down these machines as an act of retribution. Now, taking things outside of the laboratory, we go to Japan. There's a hotel called Hanna Hotel where they deploy real robots. And so what researchers have done, so this is actually done by my previous advisor at NUS, what researchers did is they again examined robots that looked more human-like versus less human-like. Right? And they found that in the event of service failure, people blamed the robots that seemed more human-like for their failures because they were perceived as being more responsible for their failures. And as a result, gave them lower customer satisfaction ratings. So there's going beyond behavioral evidence, there is also biological or physiological evidence for this. So researchers got humans to play a social game with one of these 4 partners. You have a computer at the top, a computer, a functional robot, a rather freaky-looking humanoid robot, and an actual person, right? And they found that when playing games with this kind of horrific-looking robot thing, areas of the brain that are associated with social interaction were more activated compared to playing with a functional robot or a computer, right? So this really goes to show, Okay. Well, this goes to show that we can and do perceive intelligent machines as having minds of their own, right? But what kind of minds do we perceive machines as having? So research suggests that we generally perceive minds on two main dimensions, agency and experience, right? Agency is the ability to plan, to have intentions, to have executive power, and experience is the ability to have feelings, to experience things and have emotions. And we perceive adult human beings as being high on both agency and experience, whereas we tend to perceive machines as being moderate on agency, but very low in experience, right? So we've covered how we perceive machines or intelligent machines differently from traditional machines, traditional technology. Now we're going to talk about how people react to these machines and how this is going to be important for your business. So has anyone here ever been to a haunted house? Show of hands, haunted house? Terrifying, right? As you are running through the haunted house, it's really scary. We don't think that these are just human beings. These are just people, employees who are dressed up in costumes. We interact with these characters as though they are real zombies, real werewolves, real ghosts. So similarly, when we interact with machines or robots, we don't think of them as the sum of their parts. We don't think of ourselves as interacting with them as a camera attached to some mechanical parts. We think of ourselves interacting with a real social person or real social entity. So what does this mean when we replace humans with machines at work? Well, we all have different schema or prototypes for roles at work, right? For instance, if you think of a medical doctor, you might think that to be a good medical doctor, you need to have competence. This person needs to be careful, to have compassion, and to be ethical, right? So what we do in our minds is we say, okay, if I'm going to replace this role, a doctor, with a machine, I'm going to evaluate the mind of this machine and see whether it is a good fit with the prototypical mind of a doctor, right? So machines can be competent, machines can be careful, but we have a hard time thinking of machines as being compassionate or ethical. So as a result, we think that it's not a good fit with the mind of a doctor, and we react negatively. So the better the fit between the mind of the machine and the role we want them to play, the better our reactions. And so as machines take up more and more roles in our world, right? They take up more sophisticated roles. So in the past, maybe a vacuum cleaner. Today, maybe a doctor. Tomorrow, maybe a wife or a husband, right? So as machines take on more roles, they become more and more minded. And as they become more minded, not only do the variety of our reactions increase, but so do the intensity of our reactions. Okay, so I think there's something going on with my slides, too fancy for what's going on here. So you have to imagine what I'm talking about. So imagine a delivery driver, right? So a delivery driver, okay, I'm just going to stop for now. So imagine a delivery driver. The mind of a delivery driver to customers and to employers does not have to be very sophisticated, right? Of course, delivery drivers have lives of their own, and they're real people, but for our purposes, we don't care. We just want someone who is able to take product from point A to point B without getting tired and being careful with our product, right? So it's not a very complicated mind that we require. Now, if you have a machine that can do something like that, machines are great at getting things from point A to point B. They're great at not getting tired, and they're great at being careful with our product. So to us, it is a good match. It is a good complementary mind for a delivery driver. So we react positively to this. But because the mind of this delivery person is not very intense, we don't have a very wild reaction. We go, okay, that's cool, I don't mind this. Now, thank you. So we don't really care. It's positive, but not so intense. Now imagine an office manager, right? We have people who work from home these days or work from the office, and we want to know that these people are actually working. Our employees are doing a good job. They're not on Facebook. They are talking during their meetings. So an office manager has to have more mind, right? But we also worry because office managers, people in general, can be biased. They can have people they don't like, so on and so forth. A machine, however, like Microsoft Teams, which has recently enabled a feature where they can track how much time you spend on your camera, whether you switch on your camera during meetings, whether you speak during meetings, and whether you engage with people as you're at work. Something like this can do the job of an office manager, but it can also be very impartial, right? So research generally suggests that when it comes to behavior tracking, we are quite comfortable with machines doing it as opposed to people. Because if I were to have someone watching me all the time, I will feel like this person is judging me. So we then have a more positive reaction because we think the mind is a good fit. Now, if we were to take this to the extreme of mind, right, and talk about like a priest needs to be competent, he needs to be empathetic, he needs to also have a spiritual connection with religion. And I'm not sure if you know, but in Japan, they have started using robots to conduct funeral rites, right? And what do we think of this? We generally have a pretty negative reaction to this because we feel as though robots lack empathy, and more importantly, they lack this kind of spiritual connection. But it's not just robots, right? It's about mind. Because if we were to take someone else from a different religion who is not from our own, and we had them perform the rites, yes, they can do the actions, they can do the ceremony, but they lack that spiritual connection. We're also going to react very negatively. So it's just about the mind being a poor fit for this role. And these are just 3 examples. There are countless other examples out there, right? You have robot pets, you have robot priests, you have robot doctors, lawyers, judges, wives and husbands, right? And really what I'm trying to say here is that the reaction to these replacements will be determined by the fit between the mind of the robot, the mind of the machine, and the role that we want them to play. So we've talked a lot about this fit between mind and role, right? And now we're going to talk about a framework which will help you determine how well things are going to fit. So I've got a QR code at the top of the screen. I invite everyone to scan this code. It'll give you an overview of this framework, which I hope you can take back to your own business and see how you can apply it. And we're happy to talk more if this is something you want to talk about. So there are 3 key things here, right, that is going to influence the fit of your mind role. First is the machine, the people, and the task. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are the main factors that research kind of think are really important. So first, let's talk about machines, right? The first thing that's going to influence whether it's a good fit for the role is the embodiment of the machine. So machines can be embodied as this can be disembodied algorithms. Or this will be your YouTube algorithm, your Spotify algorithm. This kind of machines or this kind of AI doesn't have a physical or social presence. And then you have virtual AI, where you have things like Samsung Sam, you have Siri, you have Alexa, so they can have visual appearances or they don't have to. And finally, you have physical robots. An important thing here is that when you go from left to right, presence of mind, or perception of mind increases. The more embodied a machine is, the more we think they have minds. But that does not mean that if you have a machine in your business, you try and give it as much mind as possible or embody it as much as possible, right? I think about airports. When you go to airports in the past, you used to check in with a person, right? You get someone to scan your passport, you check in your bags, and you move on. Now you have kiosks that do that for you. But in airports around the world, these kiosks have no identities, right? They purposely keep them disembodied. Why? Because people don't want social interactions in this point. In fact, you hear people saying, it's so great, now I can check in my bags without even talking to anyone, right? So the thing here is you want to make sure you achieve the optimal level of mind or the optimal level of embodiment for your specific business, for the specific type of machine you want to roll out in your business. Similarly, anthropomorphism refers to the extent to which we imbue non-human-like entities with human-like qualities. Again, here, you want to identify what is the optimal level for your machine, in the optimal level of mind that you want to have, and then design your machine to look like that. So imagine you have a human-like hotel receptionist, right? There's a robot. This is going to increase expectations. People are going to go, oh, this thing looks so human, it must be great. And in the event of service failure, people are going to be very disappointed very quickly. They go, oh, this robot sucks. It's stupid. It can't understand simple English. But if it's designed to look like a dinosaur, then people go, oh, this dinosaur is so cute. It can understand simple English. Right? So you identify what you want for your business before designing the robot to look that way. The reality is that most businesses don't have such sophisticated robots. We use algorithms a lot of the time, right? And when it comes to algorithms, the challenge sometimes that we face is that people don't want to use the forecast that algorithms come up with. So one way we can easily overcome this is by giving people control, more control over these algorithmic forecasts. And this doesn't have to be a lot of control. So in a recent study, the researchers asked participants to predict mathematics scores of hypothetical people, right? And they could either make their own predictions or get machines or algorithms to predict for them. And when they are not allowed to change the grade at all, so say my AI predicts that this person is going to get 75%. If I cannot change that at all, then only 47% of people use this AI prediction. But if the researchers gave them just the ability to change this prediction by 2%, so instead of 75, I can choose between 74 and 76, then the user rate increases from 78% to 68%. And it doesn't increase more if you give them more control. So sometimes even the illusion of control can encourage people to use your AI recommendations. Transparency is another thing. There's an inverted U-shaped graph where if you give people no information about how these algorithms are making their recommendations, then people don't want to use it. As you give them more information, there's an optimal point, and then there's too much information where people get overwhelmed. This is very tied to the people factor, right? Domain expertise. So there is, again, an inverted U-shape between domain expertise, where people with the lowest levels of domain expertise tend to struggle with utilizing AI efficiently, often because they lack the contextual knowledge to use the recommendations by AI appropriately. And then you go to people with moderate levels of domain expertise, and usually people there do the best. And then when you get to the higher levels of domain expertise, people tend to start disregarding the advice given by AI. And this is because we don't believe that AI has the experiences that we have, right? We don't believe that AI can make such good predictions. So what can we do here? Well, we will recommend that you increase the amount of transparency and control with people with higher levels of domain expertise, and reduce these when it comes to people with low levels of expertise. All right, we're going to last talk about tasks, right? And what kind of tasks machines are perceived as being good for. So people generally perceive machines as being great with objective tasks, but poor with subjective tasks, right? This is because we perceive machines as being being high in agency. They're able to think and plan, but low in experience. They don't have feelings. So subjective tasks is something where machines struggle in. So what we would suggest here is if your task that you want your machine to do is very objective, then emphasize that you're using cutting-edge technology to run these programs, make predictions, so on and so forth. But if your tasks are more subjective, then downplay machines and talk more about your human capability. Symbolic value is another type of task which is going to influence whether people accept machines or not. So an example is getting a tattoo versus removing a tattoo. Right? When you get a tattoo, people tend to think of it as a very symbolic gesture, whereas removing one is seen as less symbolic. So research again finds that when people get tattoos, they don't want machines doing it. But when they get their tattoos removed, they don't mind machines doing it. So again, think about your own business. Think about whether your tasks are considered symbolic or not. And if they are considered symbolic, then try to downplay machines. And if they're not symbolic, increase how good your machines are going to be. Finally, we talk about morality, right? People are very averse to intelligent machines making moral decisions. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, researchers in the United States asked people whether they would prefer going to a hospital where triage decisions, which is whether the beds are going to be given to you or not, are made by human or medical or AI doctors, right? And they found that over 80% of people preferred a hospital where humans made these decisions. They then found statistics that said that racial minorities in the US will be discriminated against. And they told minorities in the US that, hey, if you have an algorithmic doctor making these triage decisions, you are more likely to be treated fairly. This increased the uptake of people who chose algorithmic doctors, but up to only 30%. Right? So people in general don't like algorithms making moral decisions because we don't think that algorithms have emotions, have feelings, have empathy, and can treat people as unique individuals. So with that, we've kind of covered the main framework really quickly. I hope that you can go back home or go back to your business and try your best to implement what we've talked about today and design AI or design strategies to help increase acceptance of your technology with employees or customers. And if you have any questions or you want to have further consultations or talk about this more, I think myself and the team at ASB will be more than delighted to do so. With that, I've come to the end of the talk. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow. Thank you, Alex. That was more frightening than Sanjay's talk earlier. And frankly speaking, I read this about 3 months back that some robot-making companies are actually trying to put ChatGPT inside robots, which is like basically creating humanoids. So future of people at work is looking glim, right? So anyways, next session. So for the next one, since our future is looking so dark and grim, we need to really seriously talk about, how we rethink our existence at work. What are we going to do about talent? Because we do need a certain type of talent in order to fit in this kind of, humanoid era. And for this, we have Professor Dr. Wang Yiren. She's actually our faculty as well. She's from Taiwan, and she's a resident faculty at ASB. She's going to be speaking, she's going to be actually leading a panel on rethinking work and upskilling. And Dr. Yiren will then introduce our esteemed panelists. We've got really interesting people. I'll let her do the honors. But before that, I'd like to read her bio, her research areas especially, because it's all on organizational behavior. Includes very interesting work, which is on precarious work, workplace inequality, work motivation, fairness, work-family interface, and trauma. And her work appeared in numerous internationally recognized journals as well as respected media outlets as The Edge and Star. And her research is winning international excellence awards, including the S. Raines Wallace Dissertation Award in 2022. And just this month, actually, she won the Cantor Award for Excellence in Work-Family Research. Congratulations again. Yeah, so Prof. Yiren, over to you to introduce all of our panelists.
Thank you so much, crew. Can we have one more mic, please?
Can you use mine?
Can I invite all the panelists to be on the stage, please? Thank you so much. Anyone's Okay, so welcome. Welcome to this session on a panel discussion about upskilling and rethinking work. My name is Yiren Wang. As Krup mentioned, I'm currently a faculty member of organizational behavior at ASB. I research and teach how we can create a workplace where employees are productive, but also healthier, happier, and having a good balanced life. So I'm very excited to be a part of this conversation on the future of work and how we can prepare our workforce to be ready for tomorrow's jobs. So I have a I'm very glad to be joined by a group of very interesting panel consisting of experts from everywhere, including the government, the regulatory body, and also private sector, the banking industry in particular. So please join me to welcome, first of all, Mr. Siva Kruman Narayanan, the Group Chief Operating Officer of Talent Corp. Please also join me to welcome Dr. Ahmad Hedri Adnan, the Director of Group Sustainability from Bursa Malaysia. Please also join me to welcome Dr. Tuba Madasir, the Chief Human Resources Officer from Citi Malaysia. So I just wanted to start out by asking you to share some general thoughts on what are some trends that you see are impacting the industry that you are particularly in. Because just now we heard a lot of the trends and the movements on AI impacting workplace, but trends are broader than that. We also experience changes and shifts in demographics. And we're also experiencing climate change, and we're also wanting to help business pivot from high carbon footprint into more ESG friendly and more environmentally sustainable directions. So we have a lot more trends than just AI. So can you just share a bit more thoughts on what you think are the biggest and the most impactful trends shaping the future of work in your industry? Can we start with you, Mr. Siva, please?
Actually, I'm not from the industry, but I'll share with you where we observe and based on our studies. One of the things that we see shaping with the AI is actually remote hybrid work. We see this trend picking up, and more organizations are adopting this framework. But based on some of the sharings that happened earlier today, I think where we also observe is the structure of what we call continuous learning within the organization is sorely lacking. And that's an observation, because I think the motivation of an organization, as an observation based on our, I will share with you what we are doing in the council base, but what we notice is most of the efforts are always at the bottom dollar, looking at the cost versus profit. So the skills, always training centers within the SME or normal industry, we observe the pathway of career and growth and learnings are not really a norm thing. So HR strategy is actually way down the value chain of an organization structure in general. But the multinationals in the country here view it differently, and they have a different mechanism for approaching this. And that's very clear. So the question is how then we balance that and make sure that the adoption happens. So that's one observation.
Thank you. What trends do you see, Dr. Hetzri?
Thank you. Thanks, ASB, for inviting Bursa Malaysia to this conversation today. Well, there are many trends that we can reflect on, but maybe I should start by saying that a stock exchange is a supermarket. And my role at the Bursa Malaysia is supposed to be, making sure that the public listed companies that we have in our listed on Bursa Malaysia are green, sustainable, so that it will be attractive for equity players to come in and invest and acquire the stock. So, but I think the broader trend that I would like to highlight perhaps is that we as a species, as human species, we have, in just a matter of 200 years as part of industrial society has changed the face of the planet. And I think we all know, we have heard about this term, the Anthropocene, where we are so powerful, we are almost like the force that we have as a human species is almost like asteroid, hitting the Earth. So we have changed the face of the Earth just within 200 years. And what's happening now is that we are trying to be a sustainable society. And this is still, we are still at an early stage. And if you take a period before we became an industrial society, it was 12,000 years of agrarian society. And then that's where, the social structure was different, the pattern of consumption was different. Of course, before that, we were hunter-gatherer society. So I think what we're seeing in the past couple of decades, particularly post-2015, since Paris Agreement, is a more coherent attempt by the business sector, the government, and also civil society to come together and try to find a way how to coexist with nature. So that's the trend that we're seeing. I can say a bit more about that, but I thought it's good to start with that.
Yes, thank you. And how about you, Dr. Tuba?
It's a hard act to follow, right, after the speakers that we've heard already in terms of what the trends are. But if I were to think about what's the manifestation of that trend, so the trends are coming, the trends are changing, technology is here, but what does it mean for us as individuals in the workplace? There's three things that stand out to me. One is the uncertainty, right? So everybody at work today experiences much more degree of uncertainty than they did in the past. Whether it's COVID that's bringing uncertainty, whether it's tech, whether it's whatever the case might be, right? Whether it's a flood, we heard our Philippines office today, people are taking 4 hours to get to work. climate is changing. So that's definitely one. The second I would say is ambiguity. And the fact that there are so many variables in the world that are changing around us is not only making things uncertain, but our ability to predict what that then means for us in the workplace causes ambiguity. So that's the second thing that I'm seeing increasingly that people in the workplace are sometimes struggling with or are thinking about how do we deal with this. And the third trend that, again, the way it lands with us, right, is interconnectedness. And when I say interconnectedness, what I mean is, up until a few years ago, I could say I do HR, I specialize in HR, and this is what it is. But every single person that's coming to work today, even if you think you were in an area that is not, for example, impacted by technology, you are impacted. So our lives, across the world, whether we are in this organization, whether we're outside with the society, we're just so interconnected as a world today. And these trends are causing almost an upheaval in the way people see the way they bring themselves to work. And what is it that's expected of me today? How do I carry myself? What are all the things that I need to bear in mind when I perform my job? Yesterday, what was considered a good way of doing things, is it even relevant today? So I would say that there are these three manifestations that I find people and myself dealing with on a day-to-day basis when we look at life at work.
I love that. Great insights. So the next question, I believe it's on your mind as well, and it's also covering some of the previous talks, is our workforce ready? Is Malaysia ready for these new trends? Can we start with you, Dr. Tuba, to share whether you think Malaysian workforce, or especially the workforce in your industry, is ready to face the challenges that future is going to bring to us, including uncertainty, ambiguity, and the need to be more interconnected, right?
Sure. So, look, what I would say is that everybody is trying to traverse this journey. Some of us are ahead of the game, some of us are somewhere in the middle, somebody is really trying to catch up. So it's very hard to generalize to say Malaysia as a whole, are we ready, are we not ready, right? And I interact with individuals who are very, very advanced in their thought process, very willing to acknowledge the reality, and there are enough, we find, that we deal with lots of employee groups, unions sometimes, who are not willing to acknowledge what's really going on. There are a variety of things that we see happening in the workplace, which is allowing us to get a little more prepared. But on the whole, I would say that just as individuals and corporates, have we all been able to fully grasp, what it takes to be able to survive in the world of tomorrow? Not necessarily. And that is because the pace at which change is occurring, a lot of the time, we've kind of lived our lives valuing knowledge a lot, right? That I know this, so I'm important. But knowledge is becoming redundant so quickly that it's not about what I know anymore, right? It's about how can I change what I know to apply to the reality as it is today. So the fact that we are moving away from knowledge, and I really liked those 5 skills that were shared, right? The fundamental skills, that do I have the skills to then apply what I am learning, right? So the short answer to what can be a very difficult and a long question to answer is, I think there is a long distance for us to collectively cover in terms of being fully ready or equipped. I don't think as humanity we'll ever be fully equipped. But the fact that we have to start to wrap our heads around around things that are changing around us and acknowledge that ultimately we'll have to fall back on skills. We cannot fall back on knowledge or information, right? Because that's becoming redundant very, very fast.
Thank you. Dr. Hethri, what do you think? Are Malaysian business ready to make the transition they need to face the climate challenges?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What we are seeing the past couple of years is that, let's look at what would be the mega trends for 2025, one of which is the convergence of sustainability disclosures, particularly climate-related data is pretty much required, and the government is going to make a major decision in September, I think, when it comes to sustainability reporting. And if you look across, our ecosystem, the business ecosystem, of course, there is a big gap when it comes to talents to fill these, vacancies that was going to be, and we're going to end up pinching staff from, from our friends' office everywhere because of this gap. So the challenge is trying to get people up to speed to what is required. But of course, the burden of reporting is huge, and if you're not careful, then it will end up pushing us to just being in the compliance mindset, just filling in more and more forms for more indicators on environment, on DEI and that sort of thing. So I think there is a kind of state of panic in a way in the part of government and universities and also in the private sector that this is coming to our door too fast. And this is the challenge, readiness, and that's why at Bursa Malaysia we're looking at the possibility of getting the different players together and see how we can prepare the market for the change that's coming our way. Because this time around, it's not just the listed companies that are going to be required to report on sustainability, but it's going to be much broader. And with the strengthening of regulations in certain jurisdictions, particularly Europe, our SMEs will be affected as well. And even the basic task of calculating emission is not a common currency among public listed companies as yet. So imagine if this is going to be rolled out in the broader economy. So I guess we're not quite there yet, but we have to be prepared very fast. That's the challenge.
Thank you. So, Mr. Siva, I want you to also comment on, if you don't mind, your research, the research that Talent Corps has done in looking at how big is the issue that talent shortage is in Malaysia right now, because we see a lot of university graduates having trouble with finding jobs. The unemployment rate is quite high among university graduates, but there's also a lot of talent shortage in the labor market that businesses are complaining that they cannot find right talents. So suggesting there may be a skill mismatch between what universities can provide and what the labor market is seeking for. And can you also comment on what are some common struggles that you see based on your research that organizations are facing when they try to upskill and reskill the current workforce to face all those future trends?
Okay, that's a half an hour lecture actually, but I'll try to summarize it. Basically, there are two problem statements, and it's not common in Malaysia. I think when Sanjay mentioned it, it's across all regions, the similar problem. India, as big as it is, also have problem of skills mismatch. China, as big as it is, also have that. The degree is where the concern is. I think where we need to look at and where we have started the initiative is, and I shared this long time ago with Sanjay and his team, the addressing of an industry for skills must be managed by the industry and not from a government perspective. Because government will not understand, and gone are the days where we can tell you what kind of forecast and technology and adoption that should do. And education will always play a catch-up game. And I feel the ACE model that is being shared, and as well as what we call agile learning, it's the way to go. And in the government context, what we are trying to do is now we are looking into skills-based training rather than education-based approach. I think skills-based training will be the future. Organization will look at that more and more going forward. What skills do you have? What competency you are in? And that's where the approach is going to be. Now, to address that, what we need to then understand is where is the problem statement. In Malaysia, there are 4 areas of problem statement. One is what we call creating high-skill jobs. We all think there is high-skill jobs, but the Dawson statistics and our stats says the graduates that we have degree and above is about 5.1 million average in the country. But number of skilled jobs is only at 2.something million. Most of the requirements are at semi-skill. That means you're looking at vocational requirements very more. What that motivates is people who are studying for 4 years gets underemployed into a underemployment situation, and where they will then have a slow or what we call a very low salary entry, which is also not good. And the underemployment happens because there's a skills mismatch. The requirements of the industry is not met by the supply. So how do we address this? So there are 2 ways to look at it. We can keep on asking for forecasts and then train the necessary people, and hopefully in 4 years down the road, the forecast predicts well. And that's the bad move right now because of the industry evolution, the changes that are happening in the disruptions that we see. I think where we need to then ask ourselves is how do we then create a minimized gap between demand and supply and let it be driven by the what we call the industry. So we have taken a proactive approach where we have actually are currently in the pilot phase. One of it that we saw just now was the launch of the Future Skills Framework for the finance sector. But we will have 10 sectors being addressed. And our minister's wish is to launch it by September. So as we speak, we got 60 to 70 people scattering all around, getting all these data points and trying to identify. But what will it entail? Two things. It will tell us the jobs that are required in the future, meaning what we see that's going to be disrupted by AI, sustainability, green tech, and all that stuff. But it will also tell you from your position where you are right now, how do you pivot? You can pivot out, means go to a different industry, or you can pivot within that industry. So in the banking sector, and the understanding is there's a lot of disruption. In aerospace, there's going to be disruption, and so forth. The most important thing is, how do you then allow that particular individual to not lose his career or his job, but able to pivot? Meaning, how do you move on to where you need to adopt? So some problem statements that you see here today, customer service might be taken over by robot and all that stuff. So how do you then move them to client relationship management, where they actually go down to the environment, where they speak to the clients differently and give them AI capabilities with they can actually interact better and all that stuff. So there are a lot of these elements being discovered. Actually, I have a slide on it, but I don't think so we've got time to present. But basically, it covers that. So the report will go by sector. We'll cover 10 plus 1. Finance sector is one of it. There's additional inside there. And you can get to read it on the website, so it's there. But what we then say is we are telling the problem statement, which is this is where your AI job's going to be impacted. These are the disruption. These are the skills that you require. These are the competency. But then where's the solution? Because it's just a report if you hold it in your hand. So what we have done is we've formed 12, we will have 10 plus 1. So yeah, one more coming in soon. So we'll have 12 sector councils. Now the sector council model is nothing new. ILO has understudied this under the International Labour Organization since 2021. And in India, they've initiated this initiative way back in 2008. And in 2014, they actually formed a ministry for this. And today, they are the 5th largest economy, predicted to be, or they are on their pathway to become the 3rd largest. And it's all hinges around human capital. So essentially what this council does, the Sector Talent Council is entirely driven by the industry captains, and they then look at demand and supply. They actually tell us what kind of demands is required, and where the supply we will furnish from our industry or from the universities here, universities here. But then they also decide who will be the best solution provider for it. It's no more sending people to study at this university or that university. It's the industry. So the council then says, for this particular training on AI, robotics, or whatever it is, it's going to be this company, this individual, or this organization there. And then we then look at how do we address those gaps, get that accredited through our missionaries, and ensure those people are into the market. So that's the mechanism we are using. Within that also we are doing upskilling and reskilling, and that will continue with our partners like HRD Corp for funding and all that stuff, but it will be driven by the industry. So 80% of the, 60% of the members will be from the industry. The chairperson is from the industry. The term of reference is also managed through the industry. Only 40% comes from the government, and we are a passive role there. Our job is actually to kickstart it, give the necessary support in terms of what we call initial core funding, because there will be gaps and issues, and source where we can the fundings to allow that transition to happen from from all the skills that is required. So once they have that model running, we've already piloted 2 sites. The first one is E&E sector. Second is ICT. We have done biopharma. We have done FMS, food manufacturing and services. These are to name a few, but there will be 10 sectors for this.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now I wanted to turn to you, Dr. Tuba. Speaking of banking sector, I also wanted you to comment on how big an issue talent shortage is in the industry you're in your organization in particular, how hard is it for you to find the right talents when you're hiring? And if there's a huge issue, do you also agree with Mr. Siva's point, which is that it is industry's responsibility to create high-skilled jobs and to create the opportunities to meet the demand and to actually upskill the workforce? Yes.
It certainly isn't easy, I'll say that, right, to find the right kind of talent. And I'll be making myself redundant very quickly if I said it were easy, right? So it's in my interest to say, oh, it's so hard to find good people. No, but to be completely honest, it's not that people are not available. It's really the question of suitability and fit. And I say suitability and fit from two perspectives. One from the skills and the knowledge, but more importantly, the mindset. Because of the fact that the way the environment is changing around us, if I come in with a job description to say this is one page of what the organization told me that I need to perform on my job, and I have everything, I know everything to do this job, how long is that going to last, right? How far will it take us? So the mindset starts to become very, very critical. And this was one of the conversations we had on the future skills framework for banking as well, where, you know, in the task force that Citi was also representing in terms of providing our feedback, we said, look, as much as we lay emphasis on knowledge that's required for tomorrow, you must lay emphasis equally on what are now the power skills, like they call them, right? Which are really areas that, how am I adapting my mindset? Am I learning quickly enough? Am I being able to take in what's happening for the environment? So to answer your question, it's not necessarily easy. However, I fully agree that the industry needs to play a very important role because we're at the helm of it, right? So if we aren't at the helm of it, we are running what look like the future jobs, then we need to know or to be able to shape who are the people who need to come into the jobs. I'll share a couple of examples of initiatives that, you know, we're doing at Citi in order to kind of build this. And, you know, there's a lot more to be done in this space. But for example, we run a shared service here for Citi globally that does a lot of work on anti-money laundering. And understanding of what it takes to be able to spot issues or, you know, red flags, if you will. Although we are, by the way, using some AI now on it, we have a use case there that's developing. But having said that, it does require both judgment as well as understanding of the rules or the requirements, right? And what we realized was this was a unit where we were struggling to try and get people who were equipped to come and do the job. And mind you, they were not very, very senior jobs. They were jobs that are suitable for entry-level college graduates, but they weren't really equipped to come in and do what we needed them to do. So what we've done is we've partnered with in Malaysia, and we run a course there, right, where we've actually gotten into the curriculum and we run a 2-credit course that talks about not just the technical knowledge, but also how to develop some of this judgment around what is needed to pursue a career in anti-money laundering, as an example. And we don't do it to hire only for ourselves, right? So it's like, oh, you know, I have a batch of 10 and I hire those 10. We do it more as an industry initiative because we feel it's important to build that skill set at the industry. The other area we're doing it is even deeper in the educational system. For example, we partner with Teach for Malaysia. And the Teach for Malaysia example is really where we're saying, is there a bit of an aspiration gap as well, right, with young students to say, what is it that it takes for me to succeed in the future, right? And how do we try and help them address and be more aspirational about what they need to learn? So I will say that, you know, emphasis on STEM, especially here in Malaysia, looking for talent for technology, for analytics is hard. And which is why we feel that addressing it not just when people are entering the workforce, but right when they're in school is very, very important. And then one final example I'd like to share is a partnership we have with Talent Corp, which is to bring women back into the workforce, right? So we know that there is this massive pool of women who take career breaks for a variety of reasons, but then don't feel fully equipped to return. So the career comeback program, right, that we're partnering on is to say, it's not about knowledge because they can learn what they need to learn, but do they have the confidence to come back in the workforce, right? And we are partnering to create this initiative where we've in fact launched and we trained a group of 50 women to say, what does it take from a mindset standpoint to come back in the workplace? So, you know, many organizations in the industry are taking steps like these to try and ensure that we partner in order to kind of build the talent that we need for tomorrow. But I will say that there is a long distance to go and a lot of work to be done for us to be able to feel equipped that, you know, we have the talent that we require.
Great examples about how business can collaborate with government, with academic institutions to build the workforce you need for tomorrow's jobs, right? So thank you for sharing. And Dr. Hesri, I would also like you to comment on what's the biggest gaps in terms of skills and talent that you see in those businesses who are pivoting into more ESG friendly and more environmentally sustainable. In terms of the technical skills as well as the soft skills, what are some skills and mindsets that are not yet being ready by the workforce that you see and work with?
I guess the challenge with this space, in particular the sustainability space, is that it's a relatively new area. So the novelty adds to the challenges that the industry face currently. Secondly, I think there's also need to be a better clarity when it comes to our policy direction. And I think, let me comment on the second part, I think, which is the policy direction is getting clearer now compared to a few years ago. For instance, for many years, we've sort of declared to the rest of the world, oh, we want to move into green economy. But there was no clarity when it comes to, what are the granular projects that you want to move into that, will sort of concentrate the skills needed and the kind of expertise needed. But a couple of years back, a year ago, we launched the National Energy Transition Roadmap, which identify, the specific projects that the government want to move or want to build over the next few years. And this sort of a mission-based project is very important for the industry to sort of, okay, these are the areas that the government really want to, and let's focus on the kind of skill sets that we need. So I think there is better clarity when it comes to that. But secondly, if you look at the sort of enterprise level, the challenge is to get that specific skills. For instance, I was just to give an example, I was an advisor to one petrochemical industry before I joined Bursa. We opened up, vacancy call for a position in GHG accounting or greenhouse gas accounting. About 400 over people submitted their resume, so we had to, start to screen and then eventually interviewed a number of people and decided in the end that no, not even one of them stood the kind of, despite what they say on LinkedIn. So in the end, we decided to take someone fresh and send immediately for, skills that we really wanted. So I guess that sort of specific skills and also that sort of more general direction, I think both have to be addressed at the same time. Getting better on the generic part, the policy part, but I think on the granular skills, I think this is where it will take a bit of time to, for us to really understand what we want for the respective industry and the kind of the different sustainability departments, for the different, sectors. For instance, you have the peculiarities in the building sector, peculiarities in the petrochemical industry and all that. So I guess that's where I think I quite like your point about, this has to be industry-led. For instance, at Bursa Malaysia, we launched the Bursa Carbon Exchange. And then, once you launch that, and you say, oh, where are the people in this area? There's no people, right? There's no ecosystem, so we have to develop ecosystem. To develop ecosystem, then we should get the different groups together, project developers and, the whole chain. So we have just, managed to nudge the creation of an association to run this. So this will be the sort of platform to bring people together and start, to think what are the specific needs for the industry to develop. I think, doing everything at the same time, but I think a bit of orchestration role is needed. Who's going to play that? I think it depends on the respective subsectors or subsegments in industry.
Thank you. And the next question is for all three of you. Yeah. So, given how difficult it is to find the right talent for what we actually don't know what's going to be needed in tomorrow or future, right? So, how are you? What strategies do you have in terms of recruiting? What kind of mindsets, what kind of soft skills, what kind of technical skills do you look for when you are hiring people? When you see organizations that do really well at hiring for building a workforce that's ready for whatever that the future is going to throw at them? Anyone?
I'm happy to share some input in terms of, the way we're approaching this. Like I said, knowledge is becoming redundant very quickly. So there's only so much value in interviewing people for knowledge, right? It's a question of interviewing for behavioral skills as well as for the appetite to learn or the curiosity to learn. I think for us, those two are very, very critical. And in the interactions that we have with people, what we're looking for is there this innate desire to, grow, to learn, to try and find out new things, the curiosity element starts to become very important. The second thing when we're actively looking to interview, right, is the fact that um, are people demonstrating the mindset and the behaviors that we feel are important in our industry, right? So for example, ethical behavior is very critical. We're a bank and it's very, very essential part of our value system. Now, some of these things are very hard to teach on the job, right? So they come in and then you can have your environment and your framework which ensures that you incentivize the right behaviors. But you have to kind of watch for these things when you're looking, right at the outset from a hiring standpoint. And then finally, things like taking ownership, for example, right, is a leadership principle at Citi, is very, very important. So again, when I'm talking to somebody and when we're interviewing them, if you ask them for a few examples on what they do in their own area, right, and they can have a lot of glowing examples, but are they talking only about themselves, or did they ever mention that, they had help from somebody else? Did they talk about tapping into an ecosystem? Or do they demonstrate information or knowledge only about that sliver of what they do? Or do they understand how it interconnects with the broader, sort of department or unit or even organization as such? Especially in very large organizations, it can be like an ocean, right? So it's very important that you have people who understand what's the part that they're playing in the broader ecosystem. So when we're looking to hire, these are the types of things that we're looking to assess for. And our recruitment practices all need to be geared in order to be able to assess these. Now, a lot of them, you can say there's, we're also starting to use AI for resume shortlisting, for example, to remove bias from the hiring process. We have things like, ensuring that we have enough diverse interviewers, right? So every interview that occurs at Citi, for example, needs to have a woman on it, for example. Every slate needs to have a mix of diversity, in terms of the profiles of people who apply. But ultimately, we know that testing for information or knowledge is not particularly helpful. It is asking for, understanding behaviors, understanding mindsets, and finally, really the hungriness or the attitude, right, to learn. So if they're willing, because if somebody is going to come and ask you to say, you tell me A, B, C, exactly what I need to do and I will do just that, then they're not going to be relevant in our work environment literally 2 months down the line, right? So those are some of the things that we consider. In terms of then what does it take to attract people like that? I think that's also important to consider, right? Because I understand that, for example, banking is not necessarily an industry where we're saying, it's a very cool workplace, you can go experiment, take all kinds of risks. That's not our environment. Exactly. Yes, right. So how do you then draw that balance to say that, look, you'll have a reasonable amount of opportunity. We'll create the sandbox environments. We'll give you the opportunity to kind of experiment within a realm that's reasonable. But at the same time, you also don't want the kind of talent pool which is necessarily wanting to be in a very freewheeling environment, right? Because that's not our reality. So that's also, in the past, everybody wanted to work for a bank or work for an investment bank or work for consulting firms. That's not the reality today. When you go to, education institutions, people do want to do cool things, fun things, where they're at the point of decision making, they can take risks. So we do have to try and balance that as well to say what are the things we are doing in our work environment in a safe manner to provide people with that ecosystem where they feel like they're growing, they feel like they're taking decisions, they feel like, most importantly, if they see something wrong happening, can they call it out, right? Is there power distance in the organization? So we are also very conscious of who we want to attract, and then what is it that we are doing from our work culture perspective to actually make it attractive for those people to join us, right? Because there's so many organizations looking for talent.
So am I right in summarizing what you just said, that it is more important for you to attract and select people based on their core values and their soft skills, but then you train on the job their technical and the knowledge part of their jobs? Is that correct?
I would say to a very large extent. Of course, there are very specialized jobs where experience is important, right? Or knowledge is important in terms of what you need to do on the job. But it's a very fair balance between the two.
Do you have also other insights to share on this issue, especially Mr. Siva? I want also you to, if you don't mind, comment on the issue of underemployment in Malaysia, where a lot of young folks in Malaysia are not utilizing 100% of their skill sets or knowledge at work, right? So what are some strategies for recruitment that organizations can take in order to unlock those hidden potential? There may be some hidden gems out there, right? But organizations are not doing right to attract them or find them.
I think they are knowledgeable, expert, and They know what they want. Just the opposite of what we are trying to say to get them into the workforce. I think today's culture is different. The young ones go where the pay is good. I'll be frank about it. They don't care whether tomorrow is there or not. For them, right now is now. The reward is now. So give you an example, and we've done many, and it's interesting observations at school right up to that. So we have a school to work transition program. One of the problem statements when you go to school, a lot of kids there do not know what are the jobs available in the industry and what kind of skills and professions are available. You talk to them, they only see it from their angle of their surroundings. And that's where it's quite scary, because if you're at the rural area, probably your exposure is less. From a city area, probably you have more exposure, you understand a little bit more. So circle of friends influence your decision making. Let me put it this way. So what we observe, two things. Under the academic science result, more and more people are opting out from STEM. More and more people are moving into arts because it's the easiest stream to pass. And the whole idea is to get into the university. And the purpose of the university is for me to just collect a degree, because the thought process is, with that degree, I can get a job. And the job that will allow me from the parents' indicator is, you get a degree first, it's good for you and all that stuff. Now, of course, I'm not talking all, generalizing it, but this is the problem statement already. Because what happens is, maths is hard, so I don't want to take it. Advanced maths is even more difficult, don't even think about it. Those kind of thinking. So we have a steady decline. And if you look at the newspapers today, in the past few weeks, when SPM result, more and more people are not going into tertiary education anymore. They are not dumb. They are smart. And I'll give you an example. And this is a real life example. They quit once they got their SPM result. Doesn't matter, they got 6A, 5A, whatever. The point is they still want to get educated, but not now. So what they do is they will work at where possible to get what we call a steady income first. So some of them will join petrol stations, be cashiers. Some you will notice at retail outlets. They are quite okay. They can communicate. They generate that income. They will purchase their first vehicle. And you know where it's going, lah. They will go into the e-hailing business. And with that, they have their control of their time. They have their control of what they want to work hours, and they can do whatever they want to do. Now, during that, the creative ones also study part-time. Those who know what to do. La. Those who do not know, no. So the problem is this, gig economy is actually affecting labor market. And it's a big problem. It's like almost pandemic status. Why? So the problem with organization is not adaptable in the environment where you want to attract the young ones, because you got a lot of restrictions, generally. 9 to 5, you cannot take leave, your annual leave is restricted, and all that stuff. Banking even more strict, and so forth and so on. So different industry has their own requirement, but the flexibility is not there. So in any sector, no young ones wants to go become an engineer, because they know they have to wear this white robe and go inside that office. They're not going to do it because they can't take their phone. When you talk to them, they will tell you straight away, look, mobile phone not allowed in. Are you crazy? So it's already cutting off those areas. So we realize that organization needs to change its behavior. So I got 3 statements that you always must ask. And it doesn't matter what kind of disruption comes, what kind of flow, whether it's green tech, whatever it is. It's about attract, nurture, retain. So if you stick to this principle, if your organization, how well are you attracting your talent? So are you at the curve, or are you leading, or are you following? So how do you create a better attraction strategy to attract the right talent? Or nurturing, the second one is to nurture the right talent. What's your nurturing program? So today, we talk about AI, all this impact, but I'll come to that later. Just plastic bottles is an issue in an organization. The young ones will not want to join you. If they, during an interview, if you offer them a mineral water, they will say, oh, clearly you're not in the sustainable environment. And seriously, these are things they consider. So if you want the right ones, they are talking at that wavelength. Question is your organization speaking at that wavelength or not? That's the most important one. So I try. Then the other strategy is what's your retain strategy? You know, are you looking at your wage index within your organization? Are you competitive? Are you giving them opportunity to become more creative? Giving ideas out? Are you having hackathons within your organization? Whatever it takes to keep that motivation happening. So it's no more about people going there to join an organization, as pointed out earlier. I think where the real point is, the knowledge can be gained. And today, knowledge is not an issue. I have a real life situation 3 days ago only. I have a head of Future Skills Talent Council. His name is Dr. Aravind. He came and told me he's not happy with one of the candidates. I asked him why. He said, because I cannot see the candidate's face. Then I asked him further why. He said, I'm not sure whether the other person on the other side is using ChatGPT to talk to me or not. You understand what I'm saying? So there's one laptop and another question. So you ask the question. Apparently, it's possible for you to not respond, but ask ChatGPT to listen and write out the responses immediately. And on the other screen, it actually can appear. So those kind of fears are there. So you really do not know whether the individual is capable until he steps into your organization. So the question is, can we do that in a more objective and adaptable manner? That means at the end of the day, the organization is the best teacher because they can actually educate what you need, where you need to perform and all that stuff. And when you're good at it, you can move into different segments. The question problem statement has always been, oh, I trained the guy 2 years, he doesn't be in my organization, move on. But that's the reality. Average CVs of a young one is 2 years only in an only organization. Don't think they will work for you like me. Stuck in an organization for 13 years, gone are the days. They will not talk to you this way. So the thing is about the attract part, the nurturing and the retain strategy.
Sounds like there are definitely new characteristics that define Gen Zs or the younger folks who are looking for jobs, who are in the job markets right now. Perhaps you could call them more shortenism, but they're also asking organizations to focus on missions and values and be more green. So Dr. Hezri, do you have any observations, or in your experience at Bursa, have you seen any organizations that have used any very innovative strategy to recruit talent and find the right needs to meet their workforce needs?
Well, I can share what we're doing at Bursa Malaysia. We have this protege program where we bring in, for a year and see whether they are a good cultural fit or not. And the retention of this pool is quite high. So that's one strategy to go about. And of course, you have this interns coming in and out as well, but probably not as effective as having a protege for a year, where you can really observe and get them, to be a better cultural fit to your organization. But I tend to agree with Siva as well on the part of organizations must change. I think with the change that we are pushing is probably not fast enough, not in keeping with the reality out there, technology reality, and also how the demographics have changed. I've sort of bumped into a couple of very good candidates, but they have followed that path that you mentioned. They went into that unconventional mode of work, and they understand the issue very well. They can even articulate their thoughts in writing very well, better than some of the master's candidates that we have. But I got stuck with my human resource when I say, diploma, we can't do that. We are Bursa Malaysia, for instance. So that kind of flexibility needs to be built in. And I think when one challenge is that maybe in the sort of sustainability fraternity is that we must work closer with the human resource fraternity. And this is something that Bursa and also United Nations Global Compact are trying to engage with the human resource groups better and trying to sort of convey what are the competencies that we think are necessary moving forward, right? So we begin to understand a bit more about that, apart from your strategic competencies and your normative competency, you must have, this candidate must also have this anticipatory competency that may be able to have the skills to look at the crystal ball a bit, zooming in, zooming out. These are the kind of unique competencies that we think should have, but we need to engage the human resource folks to be able to convince them that, look, these are the skills that are available out there, but we are, as organizations, are not flexible enough because we stick to the sort of formula that's been around for too long, perhaps, that needs to be revisited. So I think these are the sort of fresh realization that needs to be, well, pushed out as more and more.
Thank you. That's a great point about bringing human resources as part of the organizational strategy, right? To go forward, not just doing a, there are some traditional viewpoints on HR being just administrative roles and taking care of regulatory demands, but HR is actually part of the strategy for organizations to be successful and to meet the future needs, right? Okay, so I would like to open the floor to our audience to see if there's any questions from the floor. This gentleman.
Hi, yes. I looked at the title, Rethinking Work and Upskilling. Now, I am a baby boomer, and those days, you just follow the path, you don't deviate, you will get there. But I'm more concerned about the future of Malaysian society. Dr. Siva, you mentioned about the gig economy. Actually, I wanted to ask that question. You've actually articulated it. However, it'd be interesting to note in the gig economy, what's the percentage of male and female? Then I'll go to the next question.
Okay, so I get this question a lot also, so yeah. I can share with you. Now, let me tell you one step backwards.
Can I then go to the second question?
One step backwards. The number of participation of university female participation is now clocking at 63%.
Higher than the male?
Higher than the male. I just don't know where all the males are, but they are 63%. So that's one. So it's also correlation to the gig economy. More and more males are moving into that particular space purely because of the e-hailing thing. The number of capacity is increasing. But there's a new trend. And the new trend is, you all should know already, TikTok, all this stuff, right? So you see more female becoming personal shoppers, meaning they are selling and they are productizing themselves. So it's an increasing trend there, but they are not shifting the way we see the males are.
Because the thing is, in banking, when you employ someone, it's fit for purpose. And the person who's looking for a job may say, can I do it? So why I asked that question, and you've answered also, was when the female, assuming that who don't go to king, they get smarter. Yeah? And they don't get married as young as when I got married to my wife. Yeah? So then the choices become less.
Yeah.
It becomes a future problem for Malaysian society. This is how I look at it from a different angle.
I tell you, there's a bigger problem to that. Female labor force participation, we are trying to increase it to 60. We're struggling. We are at 53, 55, we're trying to move it to 60. In all other countries, there's a double peak, meaning they join the workforce, they go off, for whatever the reasons are, then they rejoin back the workforce. In Malaysian society, or Malaysian country, it's a single peak. The participation is not coming. That's why we're driving all kind of program, career comeback program and so on. So I tell you where the problem is. We have internal brain drain, female participation. You're churning out so many in the universities, they're not going to go into the workforce. They are for a while, then they exit. Because competition, some say it's because facilities are not there for women, flexibilities are not there for women, and so forth and so on. So that's why we are advocating what we call a FWA model. And the government has already endorsed that as a law, as a policy law, and it was enacted 2 years ago already. So we are just following up. We hope it's not mandatory, but we're asking organizations to become and adopt this thing, because if not, you're going to lose that pool of people.
Thank you. I saw another hand here. Akram is one of our alum from ASP, who is also an HR professional.
Hi, my name is Akram.
Disappeared, my friend.
Yeah, sorry, I think it works, right? Yeah, hi, my name is Akram. Currently, I'm Mr. DIY. We talk a lot about, I think, upskilling, and we know that the future is uncertain. The problem is that when we talk about upskilling, people who are open about learning new things or curious, they'll be up for it. There will be a readiness. But there are many people in the organization who are not there yet. And to try to paint a picture that's very abstract and convince them then why they need to upskill is also a challenge, especially when we're different generations and etc. From your point of view and also your experiences, how can we do or enact change management in that sense to convince them that this is something that needs to be done when even the business direction or even strategy is not enough to kind of like create that shift that, oh, I do need to upskill myself, I do need to try and change the organization to be able to fit all these new challenges that are coming into the environment and the workforce.
I'll probably share some inputs and look forward to my co-panelists' views as well. I think what we find is useful is just constant conversation, constant dialogue, and reminder about people being conscious that the world around them is changing. And you will actually be surprised. One of the things that we do as part of our development conversations, right? Every manager is supposed to have with a person. We ask people a free text question saying, what do you want to be doing 3 years down the line, right? We hope they're with us 3 years down the line, right? But that's the question, saying, what do you want to do in the next, and we call it short term. We don't even ask about medium to long term. And you will be surprised at the number of people who don't know the answer to that, right? People still are thinking about, oh, if I'm an AVP, I want to become VP. If I'm a VP, I want to become, an SVP. But what work do you want to be doing, right? Is a question you will be surprised at how hard people find it to answer. So to us, I think in the organization, the critical part is how do you keep a constant discussion going about where the bank is moving, where the industry is moving, where the world is moving, and then so what's relevant for you to do, right, from a skill standpoint. Also, I find that with learning, what starts to happen is the minute you make it very prescriptive, the minute you make it mandatory, the minute you say, I'm going to track, it puts people off. They don't want to do it, right? Because they think this is another to-do in my long list of things to do. So how do you create a little bit of an aspirational aura around the fact that examples of people who have learned, examples of people who are progressing, constantly getting industry experts to come in and talk. We are a bank, but we spend so much of our time talking about advances in technology because our industry is disrupted, possibly one of the most disrupted by technology. And so a lot of people who don't come from a technology background, don't come from an analytics background, don't come from data background. So for example, we have put out a paper internally on the 90 use cases we have in Citi at this point in time globally with generative AI. Now, most people may not even be interested or curious to read it, right? Because they think, oh, this is very far away from what I do today, but it's not so far from what they do. So for us, the short answer to your question is you have to just keep reminding, and you cannot take it for granted that people are very aware or that people are very conscious of how hard it's going to impact them. So you have to constantly keep asking, and then you have to build it into your performance management because human behavior is such, right, that if it's not being measured, if it's not being asked, if they're not being paid for, what they are doing for potential, not just for current performance, then it'll slip at the background. So your entire organizational system, what the senior management is saying, what their managers are assessing them for, what we are making available to them, is it showing up in their performance mid-year conversations or year-end conversations, all needs to be tied in together and cued to the fact that you have to just constantly keep talking to people about how is it that you want to keep your skills evolving, right? So it's not easy, I will agree with you that it's not easy to do, but if they hear it day in and day out all the time coming at them from different sources, they realize that whether I like it or not is different, but I can't get away from it, right? So I think you want to get them to that point where at least they acknowledge that there is something that I need to keep doing or keep growing or keep learning about.
I just follow up on the second question then would be speed. Because change management and doing learning and development, it is quite a, I guess, midterm to long-term intervention. Are there any initiatives that you have done to speed up that process of getting people to start either upskilling or changing their organization as a whole? Some would hire external, but I guess from an internal standpoint, how can we do that?
That's one thing that as HR professionals, we've had to change about our mindset. It cannot be medium and long term. Person won't even be around if I put a 2-year talent program in place, right? That's the reality. So it is here and now. What can I provide you now and here and bite size? You will not believe some of the training content that we now circulate, right? Or articles we circulate to people. We put this thing on top to say it's a 3-minute read or it's a 5-minute read. That's the attention span people have today, right? So it just has to be on the go, here and now. Can I see it on my mobile? Can I post some comment about it? How can I share it easily? It has to be a very current mindset. Mr. Siva, you had something.
Yeah, I think some radical thoughts, but food for thoughts, right? Now we do not look at JD anymore. JD is the old way of doing things. I would challenge HR to start looking at it from skills and competency and your focus area. You put them in those areas, right? And you say your focus area is this. This is the skills and competency I will train you. Then you can have any jobs that you want to do that particular task. Of course, you got roles lah. But once you put job description and job tasks and all that stuff, tendency is people will sit behind that job description and say that my role is this, why are you asking me to do this? So you have to pivot, you have to really change that. That's why when we do the AI impact study and all the other elements, green tag, sustainability, we don't look at it from a JD angle. We just look at it from skills and competency. In countries like India, there are already advertisements going out just asking for skills and competency, not asking any more degree, job description, all the stuff is gone away with, because all those means nothing as long as you don't come to the organization and perform that particular skills and competency. So if you are with that skills and competency, you can actually deliver. And things like this critical thinking, problem solving, you know, all those can be done with a lot of assessments too. So start thinking that way. Change management can happen that way if you put your organization into that box of saying, look, all of you in this stuff. So agile, this movement is quite good. And for your info, Talent Corp is driving this kind of agenda. We don't look at it from JD anymore. So
Can I just jump in on that, please? Akram, I mean, first I recognize you. You're the one in the lift with a nice suit, white shirt and blue tie. My memory is like that. But I think what's important is, it's about, we talk about change. This room speaks it all, because there are less than 10 people who's got white hair. Yeah? Because what's important is actually leadership and the board. That tone has to come. If the board member says, I'm not going to run that, I'm going to be retiring in a year's time, you can't. So I think it's incumbent on the management actually to impress to the board how important it is. When you talk about continuous education, it doesn't stop when you get white hair. It has to continue all the way through. Only then would they understand. They will understand what generative AI is. They will talk about quantum computing. I mean, they don't have to know it. But I think it's important that that tone has to be set. And likewise, also, our leadership, administration, has to also upskill. If the leadership at administration don't upskill, then I think the question by Professor Alex in a lot of that, you know, and also with BFM, where we're leading to, I think it's not going to succeed. So I think in your case, so I think you have to impress. Who's your CEO? I know him anyway. Adrian, yeah. Adrian from Credo. So you tell Adrian, impress on well, not Ramal, but the other board members. It's important they have to learn. Yeah? So if they learn, then they appreciate, then that knowledge and the tone. So when that tone is set, you must then also, no, listen, some say, I say listen to the echo. But you have to also listen to that feedback that comes back. Yeah?
I think the other point that you should remember, and where we see things happening today, all of you have mobiles and you have upgraded your mobiles to whatever it is. It's AI companion already. So if someone sits to you and you bullshit, the person types that, he knows all the answer, right? So you can't BS also. So the other thing is, the fact remains that organization should not restrict the adoption, but harness it. So the question is, do you, as a blueprint in an organization, I say this word, do you have an AI blueprint strategy for your HR or not? So that's the human capital AI part, right? So you can talk all we talk, but if you don't have a clear, conscious blueprint developed for your organization on AI adoption, you have a problem.
If I may add, I would say that fear is a really strong, powerful motivation. If you can get your employees to get scared of losing their jobs because of AI, such as listen to Sanjay's talk or Alex's talk, right? In the future, my job may be taken away by AI, then they are going to be motivated to train and upskill themselves, yeah? So I'm looking at crew right now. Do we still have time for another question? Well, no, okay. No. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but from my side views, I saw several hands up. If you don't mind, maybe you, okay. Okay, we take one more question, yeah? So I saw another hand over there, yes.
So especially, I had a question regarding the e-commerce and the gig economy that you were talking about, right? Because fundamentally, I want to address the elephant in the room. It's like what if you see from economic standpoint, right? Demand and supply are driven by pure economics, right? So right now we are talking about employer perspective. So if you see from employee perspective, if a person is not able to get bare minimum wage to take care of his basic necessity, what is a initiative for him to join the workforce at the first place? I have spoken, like I come in from India, I have spoken with few of the Grab drivers who have quit their full-time role and started driving. The main, the main pain point they told was like, I was not even earning 3,000 ringgit, 4,000 ringgit. How can I sustain and continue living, meet my expenses with this kind of income? So from an employee perspective, what are the initiatives that they should be doing, and how do you address the wage discrimination, at least in the early stage? Question to all of you.
Only dollars make sense, right? That's the kind of challenge we face.
I'm not an expert guy. I'm not from the company. So don't shoot me. But I think it's this productivity. The key point here is productivity. I think where you need to really look at is an organization, what's your productivity ratio? And ask ourselves the most important question. As an organization, are we measuring it or not first? If we are not, then please start. Because automation will come in, robotics will come in, all this disruption will come in, but still there's productivity. Machine can take away a lot of stuff, yeah? It does it faster. So as a human, if you want your salary to be paid well, it must be commensurate with productivity. That's the way we see it. So productivity plays a bigger role. I think where the government is doing, I can speak from that perspective, we are looking at progressive wage. It's not an easy thing to do in Malaysia. Even when we put minimum wage, there's a lot of people upset. But how do you live with 1,500 in KL? I don't understand the science behind it. But the industry says, no, that's the minimum I can take at the moment. So there's wage suppression, as you can see. But that's not the way. We need to then look at it differently. So in other countries, just for adoption purposes, I'm comparing. Japan, for example, if you bring in a foreigner, today they have opened up their windows to allow foreigners to work there. Any position that a foreigner takes is equal salary to the local. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's a very good policy. So question is, in the reverse, should happen here as well. So are we able to adopt that thing or not? But the push. But of course, when you push that, we might become less competitive in the economy as well with other global players. So, I mean, in other countries. So the question is, where do we go? So the question for us is now increase our productivity. That means our skill sets should improve. That means you can pay better because we perform faster, we deliver goods better. I think that's where you can get the progressive wage started. So I stop there. I'm not the expert, but this is what I have read so far.
Yes, thank you so much for all your great insights shared. Please join me to thank our esteemed panelists. Thank you for joining us today. And if you have questions, perhaps they'll be outside and having drinks, coffee, and you can try to grab them attention. Yeah? Thank you so much for your participation.
Oh, that was a very insightful discussion. Agreed, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Shiva, Dr. Hezri, Dr. Tuba, and Dr. Iran. So the message that I got throughout this panel was that, sorry, let them shake hands. Okay, the message that I got throughout the panel was that change is really, really here. There's no turning back. You know, it's like when fire was discovered, the point at which fire was discovered, and then after that, there was no turning back. So there comes an era when you really can't go back anymore. So this is that time. And we're glad that many of you are here listening to this discussion. I also sort of like, you know, I was thinking that this is actually, what this means to us is that we have to be agile. We have to be comfortable with change. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So agility is a huge, you know, talent, I would say, going forward. And so in that regard, we actually have a little video for you. I know we're supposed to go for a jam session right after this. We'll make it quick. Just watch this video because it's pretty intriguing. This is our answer, ASB's answer to all the changes that are happening. Is there audio? No audio? Okay, if there's no audio, that's Sanjay with a special talent of being in mute. We'll send you the video, you can watch it later. This is actually about agile continuous education. It's our new way of learning. Do go to the website, pick it up. We'll speak about it more later at the jam session. We will be officially launching Agile Continuous Education in 2 weeks' time. So if you're interested to really know how this can work for your companies, because you're all business leaders and HR decision makers, I think it'll pay well to actually attend the launch and hear more about what this can actually offer. If you're interested, do you mind passing your business cards to my colleagues? You can find one of us and just let them know that you're interested in coming for the launch. Yeah, we'll send you the invite. I have a few announcements to make. What we're going to do after this session is actually go for our jam breakouts. I suppose all of you were given some colored dots. So just follow the colored dots. You've got like topic 1. Do you know what you all chose, I suppose, because you have your corresponding stickers. So topic 1 is going to be in CRE 2.1. I've got, hang on, I have to put on my glasses. Yeah, team leader, yeah. Let me read out the names. So we've got guided by Arif for CRE 201. Who's Arif? Put up your hand. And then there is guided by Zakwan for the second one, and guided by Alia for the third one, yeah? So just follow them. And right after the jam session, we'll spend about like 45 minutes, I suppose, because of the time. Right after that, there's a networking session. Please do stay back and enjoy some refreshments and do continue this discussion about talent. It's really important that we discuss this. Thank you. Thanks for your attention. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Okay, see you later then.
Learning, the cognitive psychology of learning. And what we know is that it's one thing to watch a video, but it's quite another thing to take the input and then in a class setting apply it with friends. For example, if you learn accounting, wouldn't it be great if you actually built an accounting system and your peers and the professor commented on it? So one of the fundamental aspects of ACE is it's hybrid. There's online, but there's a live session where you do exercises, you work with others, and that's where the real learning occurs. And it reflects what you've learned online, and it forces you to put it out. And that is a central tenet of everything we're doing. Agile Continuous Education has 3 components: flexibility, modularity, transferability. The course when you want it, modularity, get certificates for your learnings, transferability, then you have enough content, the right content, get a degree in very fast time and transfer the credit in. We are in a very fast-moving economy. Technology is changing, society is changing, sustainability, other questions are putting pressure on us to learn new skills. And ACE, the central term there is agile, but it's also continuous. So you have to continuously learn to stay abreast of a very rapidly changing world. ACE at ASB works because we have really incredible faculty. We have very well-constructed curricula. It's very cutting edge, so we are always at the edge of what's happening, so you're not falling behind. And equally, the pedagogy. We flip the classroom, and you have amazing colleagues creating an environment where you can not just take input, but use output to exercise your knowledge. If you take ACE, my hope is that on the one hand, you can really learn and have command over the topic. Number 2, I hope that you can prove to the world that you have this content, you know this material, and the world recognizes it. And the third is, in your company, you should become an agent of change, innovation, and progress.